Hi, I'm Josh and this is What's for Dinner, Dad. This is part 2 of our Thanksgiving series, and we're going to talk about 3 different side dishes that you can make. The first one is going to be glazed carrots, which might kind of sound like school cafeteria, but I promise this recipe, first of all, is not going to be overly sweet, and secondly, is going to have just this wonderful carrot flavor that is actually pretty easy to make. Our second dish is going to be some green beans with bacon, kind of a southern style green bean, really awesome. And finally, corn. Well, not corn, but cornbread. And I'll show you a way to make some really moist, delicious cornbread that'll go great with everything else on your Thanksgiving plate. I hope you enjoy.
So to start, we have a pound of carrots, and we're going to cut the leaves off. You do not want to eat those. Then cut the stem ends off. And then line up the tips and cut those off. And now we get to peeling. Very simple. Just peel as little of the skin as possible to remove the dirty part and expose the clean orange bright part, just like that. Then cut them into equal sized, about 1-inch pieces. I like to cut them on the diagonal and add a teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of butter, and then enough water in the pan to cover the carrots entirely. You're going to do this in a cold pan. As you can see, I don't have it on the stove until after I've added everything in. Then put the stove on about medium high, and you're going to watch the carrots for about 25 minutes. That's how long it's going to take for them to glaze and for all the water to evaporate and reduce down and the sugar and the butter to coat the carrots. While they're doing that, cut up about 2 tablespoons of packed fresh parsley. You'll use this to garnish the carrots after they're done. As you can see now, our carrots have a really nice sheen on them. They've been glazed. If you go any further than this, they start to caramelize. So I'll pour them into the bowl. Again, you can see how shiny they are. That's the sugar that has evaporated and the butter that's melted together and coated. And then I'm going to toss them with some of that fresh parsley that I've chopped up, and then just a couple of drops of white wine vinegar that'll add a beautiful brightness to these carrots. Stir it around, and then just a little bit more parsley to finish. And finally, we're going to add our salt. This is the first time we've added salt to this. I'm going to take some really large flake sea salt, sprinkle it over the top, and there we have it, our glazed carrots. Now for the green beans. I have a pound of green beans where I've removed the stems. I'm going to put them into a large pot of water, and if you've got a strainer like this, that'll be really perfect. And I'm going to blanch them, but only for 90 seconds to 2 minutes. This is going to lock in, or not really lock in, this is going to give them a really nice bright green color. And while they're doing that, over medium-high heat, I'm going to add about half a pound, excuse me, not half a pound, 4 ounces of bacon that I've cut into lardons, which are strips like that. Once the green beans have finished, I'm going to pour them into a bowl and let the bacon fat render out in the pan. And when it's just about there, I'm going to add my green beans. This will lower the temperature of the bacon, hit them with some salt, and then I'm going to stir and coat each of these green beans in the really nice bacon fat, incorporate the bacon bits into the green beans, and let them sit for about 8 minutes while they cook. And this is really kind of a personal choice on the texture. Do you want them a little more crispy? Do you want them a little bit softer? If you want them softer, let them sit a little longer. And when you're done, pour them in a bowl, and there you are. You've got your green beans with bacon. Finally, our cornbread. I'm going to take 1 ear of fresh corn and cut it in half. And then I'm going to run my knife down the sides to remove the kernels. You don't have to cut too deep. You just want the very tip of the kernel. And I'll throw those in a bowl. Then I'll take half a stick of butter and melt that over medium-low heat and add my corn kernels to it. Add just a little bit of salt, then stir it together to make sure that all the corn is coated in the butter, and let that sit for about 5 minutes. Swirl it around a bit, put it in the bowl, and there you are, you've got your corn. Now, to make my cornbread, I'm going to add 270 grams or 1.5 cups of coarsely ground cornmeal and 150 grams or 1 cup of flour. Stir those together And then add a 1/4 cup of sugar, a little more if you like it sweeter, a teaspoon of kosher salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Whisk all of that together. Now for the eggs. 2 whole eggs that I'll crack right into this dry batter. And remove that eggshell. There we go. And then I'll add all of my liquid, which is 1/3 of a cup of whole milk and a cup of buttermilk. At this point, I start to lightly mix together and make sure that I break up the eggs. You don't have to stir this too much. You want it to just come together like so. There's still more mixing to do, so be careful not to overmix or your cornbread will get a little tough. Now I'm going to slowly add my corn with the butter that it was in and incorporate all of that corn into my batter. Continue stirring, and then I've melted a whole stick of butter. You can do this on the stove or in the microwave. And I'll take a pastry brush and brush the bottom and the sides of my baking dish. This will help to give a nice browning on the sides of the cornbread and also will help it to not stick. Now I'll take my remaining melted butter and add that to the batter. Stirring together, making sure everything's incorporated. When it's all one homogeneous mix, I'll add it to my baking sheet. And then just level it off with your spatula. And then place it into a 375-degree oven and bake for 25 minutes. At that point, you should be able to stick a toothpick in, pull it out, and it should come out clean. To cut it, I'm going to cut it into 16 equal pieces, so I'll cut it in half. And then cut a half in half. And cut another half in half. And do the same thing across the other side. You can see this is a really beautiful brown top. The texture is very soft. If you like a harder, crispier texture, of course you can go for those end pieces. If you like that really soft texture, go for the inside pieces. But take a look. You see our corn is incorporated into the cornbread. Really delicious.
And there you have it. Those are our Thanksgiving sides that we're working on for today. Our glazed carrots, our green beans with bacon, and our cornbread. Let's give them a taste. First, the glazed carrots. The first thing you notice is that they're not too mushy. They're not overdone. They haven't been overcooked. So they still have just a bit of that bite that you would get with a carrot. Of course, it tastes of carrot and not anything else. It's really not all that sweet. It's just like perfect carrot sweetness. It's really good. Next is going to be our green beans with bacon. Remember, we blanched these very quickly before we threw them in with the bacon, and that really helped to keep the color, and it helps to keep their texture. There's still crispiness. The first thing you get, though, is that bacon flavor, because even if I'm not having a piece of bacon, it's still coated in the bacon fat and just is smoky and delicious with that still bright texture of the green beans. This is the way to have green beans, in my opinion. Love that. Finally, our cornbread. You can see here, got our corn in the middle, nice fluffy texture. Should be nice and buttery from all the butter we put in the batter, plus the butter that the corn cooked in. I got a nice crispy edge piece here. It's definitely what you should do if you make this. Yeah, that's great. Oh, it's so good. Problem with cornbread sometimes is it can be a little dry, but when you have that much butter in it, with all the liquid, it helps to keep it moist. That would be just perfect. You could cut that up and break it up into some mashed potatoes, or with your turkey, or with some of these sides that we made today, and make it almost like a faux cornbread stuffing. Anyway, it's really good. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you've enjoyed these recipes, and we'll see you next time. I'm Josh, and this is What's for Dinner, Dad.